Hello everyone, myself Dr. Abhishek Kumar. I am Associate Professor at the Department of Civil Engineering at IIT Guwahati. This is the introduction video related to my course, that is Subsurface Exploration, Importance and Techniques Involved. In this particular course, we will be discussing about various tests which are required in order to assess the suitability of a particular site. We know that depending upon the type of projects, we have to find out a suitable site. Sometimes we may find a suitable site, sometimes we may not find a site which is suitable for the project, but we have to do some kind of alteration to the site so that it can meet our requirement. Same way, in case there is some kind of distress to the superstructure, there is some kind of distress to the substructure also, we may be requiring different kind of in situ investigations to find out what led to the failure. In case of legal proceedings also, many a times failed structures have to be justified in terms of finding out the reason of failure based on in situ investigation. So, this particular course primarily is focusing on different investigations which can be done at a particular site in order to understand the suitability or in order to understand the causes of the failure. So, the name is Subsurface Exploration, Importance and Technique Involved, and the content. So, before going to the content, let us discuss about different kind of structures we know as civil engineering students, professionals. So, these are some type of structures which we can see in and around of us, starting with building, bridges, dams, turbines, even creation of artificial islands, which is nowadays very popular, nuclear power plants, skyscrapers, and many more varieties of civil engineering structures are now in practice, which perhaps were not there maybe 1-2 decades back. So, when we are thinking about different kind of civil engineering structures, depending upon the loading condition, design life of the structures and variety of requirement from the structure, we have to consider different kind of investigation to understand the subsurface properties of a particular site. So, overall the course is divided into 12 weeks. This particular course actually was designed in the year 2018, and from this year onward, that is from July 2026 onward, we will be adding 10 more lectures. So, this is the revised introductory video for the course which will be applicable from July 2026. So, first week we will be discussing about what is the science involved in terms of subsurface investigation, what are the problems to be addressed, and when we are going for investigations at a particular site, there are different phases in which investigations can be done, starting with preliminary investigation, reconnaissance survey, then you can go with detailed investigation, so that whatever understanding about the site we are building, it is being developed phase wise. Then there are different classification based on which you can carry these kind of investigations. What are the precautions to be taken and what are the challenges involved in each of these investigations, which will be covered in week 1 introduction video. Of course, there will be assignment given at the end of week 1, which will be the part of this. Then when we go for in situ investigation, the first thing which we have to do is collect the soil type which is available near the surface. So, primarily we will be conducting based on test pits. So, I will be talking about what are test pits, what are the important properties one can understand from test pits. Then we can go with detailed investigation, starting with boreholes, borehole drilling, then collecting soil sample from different depth, then mapping about groundwater table, soil classification. So, all those things will be discussed in detail. Then when we are collecting the sample, there are different kinds of samples we can collect. Which sample can be used for which kind of properties, that will also be discussed in this particular course. Then disturbed sample, undisturbed sample. Many a times after soil, we are having different layers of rocks. So, how to proceed with drilling in a rock, what is RQD, TCR, different ways in which augering can be done. So, you will not be collecting samples at the same time, you will be also proceeding with the boreholes. So, you can have to have augering depending upon the stratification type, depending upon the position of water table, the material encountered, you can select a specific kind of augering. Then very popular methods which are like standard penetration test or SPT test, cone penetration test, that is CPT test, pressure meter test, dilatometer test, recordings and interpretation of each of these tests will be discussed in detail in week 2 and week 3. Plus, as I mentioned earlier, there will be assignments which will be related to the topics which are covered in week 2 and week 3, so that you can assess your understanding about the course. Week 4 and week 5 we will be discussing more about geophysical investigation. So, in order to understand more about the subsurface and in order to get more information confidently within less time, geophysical investigations are also becoming popular nowadays. So, some of the geophysical investigations involve magnetic methods, gravitational methods, mostly focused on understanding the subsoil, geological formations, seismic refraction, seismic reflection survey nowadays are very popular, so that quickly we can understand about strength characteristics of near surface material, both for static as well as for dynamic loading condition. So, seismic refraction, when we say, we are having multi-channel analysis of surface waves, spectral analysis of surface waves. So, these two methods are also very popularly used nowadays to understand, based on geophysical method, what is the stratification details near the surface. Suspension logging, sounding, profiling, electrical resistivity, recording and interpretation, this will also be there. Then offshore investigation also we will be covering in this particular subject. So, how this will be different from onshore investigation, that also will be covered, barges, jack-up platform. So, some typical terminology which will be used when we discuss about offshore investigation, plus some assignments over there. Dynamic testing of pile, whenever pile is installed at a particular site, we have to take a decision whether it will be meeting the required criteria in terms of offering resistance, whether the required length and cross sections have been achieved. So, we will be doing dynamic testing of pile. So, that basics of dynamic testing of pile, both high strain and low strain, will be covered in weeks 7 and 8. Then pile load test, plate load test, these are very important tests whenever we are going for understanding the bearing capacity, whether it is for shallow foundation, whether it is for deep foundation. So, for shallow foundation we go with plate load test, for deep foundation, particularly pile foundation, we go with pile load test. So, how these tests are done, what are the codal provisions, plus some numerical we will be discussing, so that we can understand what is the rate at which loading has to be interpreted while analyzing the records from the site, plus some assignments will be there. Then vane shear test, in order to understand the in situ shear strength, how to determine field permeability, that will be also covered, followed by some numericals in week 10. Week 11 we will be covering about seismic tomography and ground penetrating radar. These are very important tests in terms of understanding indirectly about subsurface properties. Of course, some assignments will also be there, and this is the last part of the course, that is pull out test, particularly useful whenever we are using any kind of anchors in ground for retaining structure. You can go with pull out test, and numerical interpretation for pull out test, seismic tomography and ground penetrating radar. So, with that we will be covering the entire course in 12 weeks. The details of the course are also given. So, this particular course can be used by graduating student, it can be used for students who are preparing for different exams, it can also be used for civil engineers who are practicing in field. So, overall this can be used by all the students who are involved, or all the professionals who are involved in civil engineering activities. Thank you, and I look forward for your active participation in this particular course. Thank you so much.